The hum of the Starship always comforted Daniel. To most passengers, the sound of the reactor and the soft hiss of air systems was background noise. But to him, it was the voice of a machine that needed care. He had been an engineer for almost a decade, fixing everything from broken stabilizers to faulty air recyclers. He was not a soldier, not a diplomat, not a leader, just a man who liked to keep things working. The vessel, Celestial Path, was unlike most ships Daniel had worked on. It was not a cargo hauler or a military cruiser. It was a neutral vessel, owned by no single empire, designed to carry diplomats, ambassadors, and envoys safely between systems. Its halls were wide, polished, and filled with passengers who spoke languages Daniel could not even understand. Humans were still new to the galactic stage. Only 50 years ago had Earth sent its first faster-than-light ship into the void. Since then, humanity had signed a few trade deals, offered technology in exchange for knowledge, and quietly tried to survive among older, stronger civilizations. Daniel knew well that humans were not respected everywhere. Some species saw them as reckless newcomers, others as potential tools, and a few as rivals. That was why Daniel kept his head down. His job was maintenance. Fix the pipes, seal the leaks, adjust the systems. He had no interest in politics. Yet somehow, politics had found him. Rumors filled the Celestial Path. Passengers whispered about one figure, the Xylarian Queen. Even Daniel, who rarely listened to gossip, could not avoid hearing her name. She was said to be tall, with skin like starlight and eyes that could cut through lies. Some claimed she could silence an entire council chamber with a glance. Others said she had conquered worlds without firing a shot, simply by walking into a room. Daniel had never seen her. He hoped he never would. People like her existed in a world far above his. One evening, while most passengers attended a grand diplomatic dinner, Daniel worked in a quiet corridor near the observation deck. A pressure alarm had been triggered, and he traced it to a faulty seal in the bulkhead. With his toolkit open, he knelt, tightening bolts and humming to himself. The hallway was empty at least. It was supposed to be. He heard soft footsteps, slow, measured. Each one echoed like a command. He froze, his wrench halfway to the bolt. He turned. She stood there. The Queen. Daniel had expected her to be surrounded by guards or assistants, but she was alone. Her figure was tall, elegant, almost statuesque. A long dark robe trailed behind her, marked with silver patterns that seemed to shift as she moved. Her skin held a faint glow, as if the stars themselves had left their mark upon her, but it was her eyes that struck him most silver, sharp, alive with intensity. Eyes that saw through walls, through titles, through excuses. Daniel scrambled to his feet. "Your Majesty," he stammered, unsure if that was the correct title. He had never spoken to royalty before. She did not respond immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her presence filling the corridor. Daniel felt as if the very air grew heavy, not hostile but powerful. "You are the human," she said finally, her voice low, smooth, carrying a weight that demanded attention. Daniel swallowed. "I'm one of them, yes. I'm just an engineer, fixing." He lifted his wrench nervously. "This seal." Her gaze never left him. "Others whisper about humans. They say you are fragile, reckless, temporary." Yet, she paused, tilting her head as if studying him. "I do not see fragility." Daniel forced a weak laugh. "I assure you, I'm very breakable." The Queen stepped even closer, closing the space between them until Daniel's back nearly touched the bulkhead. He froze, heart hammering. No guard, no witness, just him, and the most powerful woman on the ship. Her words were quiet, but each one struck him like thunder. "You're the only thing I desire. Human." For a long moment, Daniel could not breathe. Surely he had misheard. Queens did not speak like that. Not to engineers. Not to humans. "But pardon?" His voice cracked. Her silver eyes softened, though the intensity remained. "Do not play ignorant. I have ruled long enough to know my own mind. Among countless faces, countless voices, yours alone draws me. Tell me, Daniel of Earth, do you fear me? Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. Every instinct screamed to answer yes. She was an alien queen. Her people commanded fleets. If she desired, she could have him removed from the ship with a single order. But as he looked at her, he saw something beyond the crown and the power. Her eyes, though sharp, carried a weight he recognized. Loneliness. No, he said quietly, I don't fear you. The queen's lips curved into something that was not quite a smile, but not cold either. She leaned slightly closer, enough for him to feel the faint warmth of her presence. Good. Fear is useless between those who are meant to stand together. Daniel's mind spun. What did she mean? Why him? He was no ambassador, no warrior, just an engineer with oil stains on his hands. Before he could ask, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor. 2 Xylarian guards appeared, their armor gleaming. They froze when they saw the queen and bowed deeply. Your Majesty, one of them said, the council awaits. The queen did not move for a moment. Her gaze lingered on Daniel, holding him still as if her will alone anchored him. Finally, she turned to her guards. I will attend shortly. The guards bowed again and withdrew. The queen faced Daniel once more. Do not run from me, human. This starship is vast, but you cannot hide from what has already been decided. She stepped back, her robe whispering against the polished floor, and walked away. Daniel stood frozen, wrench still clutched in his hand, heart pounding as if it might break his ribs. He had come here to fix a seal. Instead, the most powerful alien on the ship had cornered him, declared him her only desire, and left him standing like a fool in an empty hallway. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay in his small cabin, staring at the ceiling. His mind replayed every second of the encounter. Her voice, her eyes, her words, "You're the only thing I desire, human." It made no sense. She was a queen. He was no one. What could she possibly see in him? Worse still, if others learned of this, what would happen? Diplomats would twist it into politics. Ambassadors would use it as leverage. Rival species might see him as a threat. And yet, beneath the fear, there was something else. A spark. A pull he could not explain. For the first time in years, Daniel felt that the universe had shifted around him, and he had no idea where it would lead. The starship hummed through the quiet emptiness of space, a silent pulse connecting distant stars. For Daniel, the quiet was unsettling. Ever since the encounter with the Xylarian queen, he felt as if he were walking on the edge of a precipice. Every shadow seemed longer, every footstep echoing like a warning. He had returned to his quarters, but sleep eluded him. The queen's words played over and over in his mind. You're the only thing I desire, human. He still could not believe it. Perhaps it was a test. Perhaps she had made a mistake. Or perhaps she truly meant it. Yet Daniel also knew that her desire was not trivial. In her world, power was absolute. To have the queen notice him was to invite both privilege and danger. The next morning, Daniel found himself summoned to the ship's observation deck. He arrived to see several alien ambassadors waiting. They were a mix of species, tall, insect-like beings with glimmering exoskeletons. Short, muscular humanoids with deep, earthy skin tones, and others with shapes that defied human comprehension. At the center of them all was the queen. She sat on a floating platform, her silver eyes scanning each envoy. When she saw Daniel, her gaze softened, almost imperceptibly, yet it carried more weight than the entire council combined. Daniel stepped forward, unsure whether he was expected to bow or just stand. Your Majesty, he said, voice careful. Daniel, she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. I asked you here because the matters of this ship are not merely mechanical. They are personal, the council murmured among themselves. Daniel could feel their eyes on him. He was human, fragile, inexperienced. Yet the queen had chosen to bring him into her presence. Defying the expectations of an entire assembly. Human ingenuity is rare, the Queen continued, and trust rarer still. I see in you qualities that even my most seasoned advisors lack: courage, curiosity, calmness in uncertainty. You are unafraid where others tremble. Daniel's throat went dry. I am honored, Your Majesty, he said, unsure what else to say. He was only an engineer, not a diplomat or warrior. The Queen stood, her long robes floating around her like liquid silver. I do not speak of honors, Daniel. I speak of truths. You must understand, the choice I have made cannot be undone. Others may fear, others may protest, but my mind is firm. Daniel's stomach turned. What choice? What was she speaking of? The ambassadors whispered urgently, leaning toward one another. Daniel caught fragments of their conversation. Words like impossible, human threat to order floated through the air. Clearly, they were unhappy with the Queen's decision. One ambassador, tall figure with emerald skin and 6 eyes, stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said, voice trembling slightly, to favor a human in this manner is unwise. It will upset the balance of power. Other factions will see this as weakness or favoritism. The consequences, I am aware, the Queen interrupted, her tone icy. The consequences will be managed. Daniel is not a pawn. He is my choice. The council fell silent. Daniel could feel their disapproval, their fear, even their disbelief. None of them had expected a human to hold this kind of weight in their calculations. Later, in a quieter corridor, the Queen found Daniel alone, repairing a minor malfunction in the ship's life support system. She did not speak immediately, simply observing him work. You are efficient, she said finally. I can see why others overlook you. You do not shout. You do not demand attention. You simply act. I just do my job, he said softly. I fix things because they are broken. That is all. The Queen stepped closer, her presence enveloping him like warmth and gravity combined. No, Daniel. You do more than fix things. You carry yourself in a manner that inspires trust. Even I trust you. Daniel froze. He had never imagined that a being so powerful could trust him, could even see him as more than an insignificant human. Days passed, and the Queen continued her subtle attention. She would appear in the corridors unexpectedly, watch him as he worked, sometimes asking him questions about systems, sometimes about life on Earth. Do humans always work with such focus? She asked one day, watching him calibrate the engine's power regulators. Daniel smiled faintly. Some do, others get distracted. I guess I am just used to solving problems. Her silver eyes studied him. You solve problems not because you fear failure, but because you seek solutions. That is rare in any species, yet the attention came with weight. Some crew members whispered behind his back, speculating on why the Queen favored him. Rumors began to spread. Certain ambassadors grew hostile, challenging the Queen's decision. One day, an altercation occurred near the command bridge. A delegate from a distant system approached Daniel aggressively, his voice harsh. Human, do you realize what you are doing? You cannot comprehend the implications of being chosen by her. Daniel raised his hands. I am not trying to cause trouble. The Queen's voice cut through the air like steel. Step back, she commanded. The delegate froze. This human acts with honor and courage. Your protests are meaningless. The room fell silent. Daniel could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of awe and fear. He realized then that the Queen's choice was not merely symbolic. It carried real consequences for him and for everyone around him. One night, Daniel worked alone in the engine room. The hum of the ship was louder here, vibrating through the floor and walls. He adjusted a stabilizer, the lights flickering slightly. You work late? The Queen said, appearing at the doorway without warning. Daniel jumped. I wanted to make sure everything was functioning correctly, he said. The ship. It is fragile in parts. She approached, studying him closely. You worry about fragile machines? She said softly, almost to herself. Yet you do not worry about yourself. Why? Daniel hesitated. I I guess I trust that if I do my job, things will be okay. And I think humans are stronger than they look."
Oh.
The queen smiled faintly, a rare expression that softened her formidable features. "Perhaps you have strength of a kind few understand. I see it, Daniel. Others may not." Daniel swallowed, unsure if he should speak. "Your Majesty, I don't know why you pay attention to me. I am just a human." Her eyes glimmered. "That is precisely why. I have lived centuries ruling, seeing thousands of lives pass before me. Most are predictable, ordinary. But you are unpredictable. You think, you act, you survive. You do not follow fear blindly. That is what I desire." For the first time, Daniel understood. She was not merely testing him or toying with him. She saw something in humans, something rare. Courage, ingenuity, and a refusal to be intimidated. And in him, she saw it exemplified. The realization both thrilled and terrified him. He had faced many challenges in life: mechanical failures, long space travels, diplomatic tension, but nothing like this. To be noticed by the most powerful being on the ship. It was exhilarating, yet dangerous. By the end of the week, Daniel found himself navigating a new reality. Every glance from the queen carried meaning. Every word she spoke could be read on multiple levels. He knew he was under scrutiny, not just by her, but by the entire diplomatic crew. And yet, for all the tension, there was also a strange comfort. For the first time, Daniel felt that his actions, his choices, and even his human perspective mattered in a galaxy of vast power and politics. He had been an engineer, just a man fixing machines. But now, he had become a thread in a tapestry far larger than he could have imagined. A tapestry where courage, intelligence, and heart could change outcomes. Where a single human could capture the attention of a queen. Daniel did not know what would come next. Ambassadors would protest, dangers might rise, and every day carried the risk of conflict. Yet, he also felt a spark of destiny, sensed that this was only the beginning, and somewhere in the corridors of the celestial path, the Xylarian queen watched him, her silver eyes reflecting a galaxy of possibilities, waiting to see if the human she desired would rise to the challenge. The celestial path glided through the quiet of space, its engines humming a steady rhythm. Yet the calm was deceiving. In the weeks following the Queen's declaration, the ship had become a place of whispered conversations, suspicious glances, and quiet maneuvering. Some ambassadors openly questioned the Queen's judgment. Others, more subtle, tried to influence Daniel directly, reminding him of his place. "You're threatening to remove him from it." Daniel, however, continued his work. He adjusted power regulators, repaired conduits, and monitored the engine's temperature with careful precision. In every moment, he reminded himself that the Queen's choice was both a privilege and a responsibility. He had learned to navigate the new tension with caution. Every time he saw the Queen, she offered small words of encouragement, a nod, a glance, sometimes a question about the systems he worked on. She never pushed him too far, never commanded. Yet, her presence alone carried weight, enough to make Daniel acutely aware of the eyes upon him. One morning, as Daniel examined a minor fluctuation in the ship's energy conduits, a message arrived from the central communications hub. Engineer Daniel report immediately to the Queen's private chamber. His stomach tightened. Summoned alone usually meant serious business, and in a ship filled with political intrigue, that could mean anything. When he arrived, the chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of floating consoles. The Queen was already there, standing near a panoramic window that showed distant stars streaking past. Her silver eyes glimmered as she watched him approach. "Daniel," she said softly, yet her voice carried the authority of a monarch. "We have a situation. Some factions aboard this ship do not approve of our bond. They are attempting to manipulate outcomes, to sabotage operations." Daniel frowned. "Sabotage? On this ship?" The Queen nodded. "Yes, they fear the influence of a human beside me. They do not understand what it means to face danger with clarity, courage, and focus." Daniel's hands tightened around his toolkit. Then I should help stop them, he said. We can prevent damage before it happens. Her lips curved into a faint, approving smile. That is why I trust you, Daniel. You act before panic sets in. You calculate, you act, and you survive. They do not expect it from a human. The first signs of danger came the next day, while Daniel inspected the navigation systems. A loud spark erupted from a console, followed by a shower of sparks and the smell of ozone. Smoke began to rise, triggering alarms throughout the corridor. Daniel acted quickly, shutting down power to the affected systems and clearing the smoke with emergency ventilation. No one was hurt, but the incident sent waves of panic among the crew. When he returned to the observation deck, the Queen was waiting. Intentional or accidental? She asked, her gaze sharp. Daniel shook his head. I don't know. Everything was functioning correctly. But someone may have tampered with the systems. She approached, her presence calming yet commanding. Then we must act. You will work with me directly to secure the ship. Others may hesitate, but you will not. That is what makes you different. Daniel felt the weight of her trust and responsibility. The Queen was placing the safety of the entire vessel in his hands. And though fear lingered, he also felt a sense of purpose beyond what he had ever known on Earth. Over the following days, Daniel and the Queen worked side by side. She was not a technician, but her intelligence and strategic thinking impressed him. She understood systems in ways most humans could not, predicting potential failures and noticing minor discrepancies in performance. Daniel could see that her strength was not only physical or political, it was analytical, precise, and disciplined. Watching her, he realized that her fearsome reputation was not merely a tale it was earned. Yet, amidst the work, there were subtle moments of connection. She would ask about Earth, about the way humans lived, about small customs that seemed trivial but fascinated her. What is the purpose of a celebration called birthday? She asked one evening, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. Daniel chuckled softly. It's a day when we honor a person's life. Friends and family gather, share food, and give gifts. The Queen considered this carefully. A day to recognize value, even in the smallest of beings, that is, wise. Not all on the ship were pleased with their growing bond. One afternoon, as Daniel adjusted a plasma conduit near the engineering bay, he noticed two delegates whispering urgently to one another. They glanced toward him, their expressions a mixture of suspicion and disapproval. One, a tall, horned alien with amber eyes, muttered words Daniel did not understand. Yet the tone carried warning. Daniel realized that he was under scrutiny from multiple factions. Every move, every word, every decision he made could be observed, analyzed, and used against him. And yet, he continued his work. It was not fear that guided him. It was focus. It was the human instinct to act and solve problems where others hesitated. That night, alarms blared across the ship. Daniel ran toward the source, finding a fire breaking out in the cargo hold. A faulty power conduit had sparked, igniting flammable cargo. Crew members panicked, unsure how to contain it. Without hesitation, Daniel activated emergency suppression systems and directed crew members to safety. Smoke filled the corridors, and heat radiated through the metal walls. But his calm guidance prevented injuries. As the fire was contained, the Queen appeared at his side. She had moved through the corridors faster than he had imagined possible, her presence both protective and commanding. You did well, Daniel, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. You acted when others hesitated. That is why I chose you. Daniel looked at her, seeing admiration and trust, not just authority. I only did what anyone would do, he said humbly. No, she said firmly. Not anyone would act with clarity under pressure. Not anyone would act with courage. You did. That is what sets humans apart, Daniel. You may be new to the galaxy, but you are not weak. You are exceptional. Over the next few days, Daniel continued to secure systems, repair, sabotage, and monitor the ship for further threats. Each time he succeeded, the Queen's trust in him grew. And, as they worked together, a bond formed a bond not of obligation, but of mutual respect. Yet danger continued to loom. The factions who opposed him were not idle. One night, he discovered a tampered engine coolant line. If unnoticed, it could have caused a catastrophic failure. Daniel worked quickly to repair it, realizing that someone on the ship wanted to see the celestial path fail. Someone wanted him gone. The Queen arrived just as he finished. "Do you understand now, Daniel?" she asked quietly, her eyes reflecting concern. "Your position here is not simple. You are not merely an engineer. You are a symbol. To those who fear change, you are a threat. To those who trust courage, you are an example. And above all, to me, you are important." Daniel felt the gravity of her words. He was no longer just a man fixing machines. He was part of something far larger, a galaxy of intrigue, danger, and destiny. The following morning, Daniel and the Queen met in the command center. Several ambassadors were present, all wary and tense. "There is unrest among certain factions," one ambassador said nervously. "They fear that the humans' influence will disrupt the established order." The Queen's gaze swept over him, unwavering. Daniel is not a threat. He is a partner. He does not seek power for himself, only to act with wisdom and courage. If you oppose him, you oppose me. The room fell silent. Even the most outspoken diplomats were forced to reconsider their objections. For the first time, they realized that Daniel's human courage had earned him a place beside the most powerful ruler they had ever known. Daniel understood then that this was more than recognition, it was responsibility. His actions could sway entire fleets, entire empires. And though the weight was heavy, he felt ready. By the end of the week, the celestial path had stabilized. The sabotage had been contained, threats neutralized, and Daniel's reputation aboard the ship had shifted. He was no longer just an engineer. He was a human who had proven himself capable in the face of danger, calm under pressure, and intelligent enough to act when others hesitated. The Queen watched him as he repaired a small, malfunctioning power relay. Her gaze was steady, full of admiration and quiet pride. "You see, Daniel," she said softly, "humans are underestimated. They think we are fragile, weak, easily broken. Yet you are proof of our potential. Strength is not in size, nor in weapons, nor in fleets. Strength is in courage, in ingenuity, and in heart. You possess all of these. That is why I chose you." Daniel felt a swell of emotion. For the first time, he understood that being human, his very nature, was enough to command respect, even across the stars. And as the celestial path sailed onward, he realized that the bond forming between him and the Queen was only the beginning. Together, they would face dangers that no one else could withstand. Challenges that would test courage and moments that would define not just their lives, but the fate of countless worlds.